Protecting Africa would like to draw the attention of all brown people once again about the situation in Ivory Coast. The enemies of Africans, the pink nations, are currently pushing the neo-colonialism agenda in order to preserve our sisters and brothers in Ivory Coast as mere slaves and servants of theirs. Via the news agencies that have supreme domination over Africa's and the world information sector, they have been reporting news in a way that will make President Gbagbo look like a dictator that doesn't want to leave power, when reality on the ground is that France, the USA and EU are trying to violate Ivory Coast laws by only recognizing the partial result issued by the Independent Electoral Commission of Ivory Coast, without taking into account the decision of the Constitutional Council of Ivory Coast, because they want the puppets in power. When the current rebels leader, who is a close ally of Ouattara, both of which are supported by France and their brothers USA EU, launched a coup d'etat that failed, the so-called international community, which in reality those who call themselves the West, was quick to push for a government of national unity, when logic and justice says they were supposed to condemn the rebelling soldiers and push for the AU to take punitive measures against them. The behavior was because these rebels were backed by them in the agenda of making sure that since President Gbagbo was not bowing to their will, he had to go so that pink supremacy is preserved. The African Union and ECOWAS, which is the economic bloc of Western African state leaders, as always relying on USA, EU, France news agencies and the presentation made to them by the UN Secretary General Envoy to Ivory Coast, sided with Pink Nation. Let's take into account that the UN Secretary General is from South Korea, and South Korea is a colony of the USA, meaning the Secretary General of the UN is doing pink supremacy will. And I believe out of the propaganda pink news agencies run and their own ignorance of not knowing that the pink nations are devils, as far as Africans are concerned, the AU and ECOWAS sided with them. As you know, Africa is in a messy situation, and it is not getting out of the messy situation because the AU and organizations like ECOWAS are mere stooge. The US and EU are pushing left and right. Those organizations are full of puppets, servants and slaves of pink nations. And these people, most of them got affected by the psychological warfare pinks run and view pink people as superior humans to them. President Gbagbo, being a revolutionary, understands well that this battle is against pink supremacy and is ready for the wars in order to protect our people in Ivory Coast against the pink enemy. The open meddling by racist supremacist pink countries in Ivory Coast is to preserve and protect pink supremacy, and there is no doubt about that. Back in 2000, French occupation troops in Ivory Coast destroyed the entire government forces fleets of fighter jets to protect rebels after those rebels came under air attack. And the same French troops butchered in cold blood more than 70 Ivorian women, children and men protesting French colonialism in Ivory Coast. And because Africans rely on pink media for their news, they got fed a story that will hide the meddling of pink nation in Ivory Coast, and never came to know the full exposure of the atrocity the racist pink soldier committed against our sisters and brothers in Ivory Coast. Today, President Gbagbo asked the French troops and the UN troops who are being used to destabilize Ivory Coast and create more division among the people of the country to leave. And this is on heroic news, even if President Gbagbo was supposed to kick them long time ago. The move by President Gbagbo will terminate French colonial occupation of Ivory Coast that date back to the enslavement of Africans. We already know the French racist supremacist entity will resist that move. We call on you to side with President Gbagbo and the Ivorian nation against our common enemies, the Pink Nation and their people attempt to install puppets in Ivory Coast in order for them to continue their madness. You have to remember that the current colonial borders were put by European nations so that we look at each other like foreign nations, which is just the enemy plot that date back centuries back. If you contrast then and now, you will see that back then, after the failed coup d'etat, they pushed for President Gbagbo to include the rebels into the government. And now they are pushing for President Gbagbo to go despite the Constitutional Council of Ivory Coast declaring him the winner after attending to the case of vote rigging. What they wanted from the start was for President Gbagbo to go, and today they are not talking about having a deal despite the fact that there's a serious problem, that there's a serious situation that can lead to more death. We call on you, brown people, to oppose pink nations meddling in Africa. They do so to push the neo-colonial agenda which keeps millions of Africans into starvation. Their meddling is the reason Africans don't use African name to name the children anymore, because they make us believe that everything about us is wrong and is bad, is primitive. If we don't stop pink people, madness in Africa, we are doomed. Stand with Ivory Coast and stand with President Gbagbo.